This graph, in my opinion, summarizes how the internet hype works. So you have some new technology that is taken off insanely fast, and then you see two types of people on the internet. The first type is trying to tell you that your life without this new technology is worthless, basically. This technology is going to make you $7,589 just overnight. Cloudbot is insane. It's completely insane. Cloudbot is 24/7 employee, the greatest AI app ever. And then you have a second group of people that is trying to balance the internet, that's trying to counteract the first group of people. And these people are adopting the opposite narrative. They're trying to tell you that Cloudbot actually sucks. It's mostly hype. They're just trying to paint themselves as the opposite force of the hype guys, and they actually know what's going on. Actually, some of them are trying to explain what this new technology actually is and what are the actual useful use cases for it, what differentiates it from previous technologies. The scary thing about this, in my opinion, is that not only normal people can fall for these two groups of people, but actually technical people can do. So I came from a technical background. I have studied computer science, I have studied AI, and I think I understand the concepts behind AI agents and how they actually work. And still, I have fallen to one of these categories. When the first I saw these videos, I said, oh, a lot of people are talking about it. It must be something very good, and I have to know about it. And actually, my life should never be the same since the moment this technology has been released. And I actually felt this. And again, I'm a technical person, so normal people are so easy to fall for this as well, in my opinion. So the moral of the story here is that I actually learned to take a step back, to look at the big picture from objective point of view. Okay, some people are saying it's insanely good. Some people are saying it's like hype. The only way to find out is to understand how it actually works, what differentiates it from other technologies, and how we can actually use it, and what use cases I'm actually going to be adopting with this new technology. Without further ado, let's go to the use case. So if you think about any AI agent, if you ask just a random person on the street, they're gonna tell you ChatGPT, maybe Claude Code if they really advanced. The concept of AI agents is associated with these services, right? This basically affects the accessibility because, for example, Claude Code runs on the terminal. So to use these AI agents, you would need some little bit of technical background to get the maximum out of it. Like to actually be able to use Cloud Code, for example, either in the browser or in the terminal to do some tasks, you somehow need to have some technical expertise. Might not be objectively true, but subjectively, based on what people think, that is actually true. I'm going to give you an example. One of my friends, he's actually a developer, so he's a programmer. He's been using Cursor. He was thinking to switch to Cloud Code just because he heard that it is better. The number one reason he didn't switch immediately to Cloud Code is because Cloud Code runs in the terminal, and he was actually scared of the terminal. And that's a technical person. So what do you think the normal or the average person who's interested in using AI agents, they're going to be scared also to use Cloud Code. Maybe a small percentage of them are going to adapt the technology. The second thing is that if you want to integrate these agents with the applications that you're using in your daily life, WhatsApp, Telegram, email, calendar, you would need to implement either separate integrations with MCPs, or you need to implement different integrations with specific APIs for these services. Now, Cloudbot removes this barrier to entry by making the agent work directly on the messaging apps that people use in everyday life. The interface by design is one of these messaging apps. It's WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, Slack, iMessage. So now you're going to communicate with the agent within the apps that you use in your daily life. So you don't need actually to set up something external. It's much easier to use it for people who are, for example, not technical. Even if you're a technical person, it's an easy access that is in your pocket everywhere where you go. You can just message on Telegram, WhatsApp. So it makes it more accessible. The other thing is that it integrates all these messaging apps in one place. More than 50 integrations already and integrated inside the Cloudbot, which makes all these external setups much more easy, and you can have interesting use cases. So now let's go into the architecture overview. How does it actually work? So first you have the device, for example, the Mac, iPhone, Android. And then you have the messaging platform that you're integrating to, like the WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord. The connection between these devices and platforms to the agent that we have, in this case it's Spy Agent, is enabled through Gateway. Cloudbot Gateway enables the connection. It's like a WebSocket server between these devices. Then the agent itself connects with LLM providers like Claude, Olama, OpenAI, and also it connects with external tools or even tools that the agent has access to, like reading and writing files, running commands, and web fetching. All of that also has access to memory, so it can remember the context of the conversation, the instructions, and the files that it has access to. And we're going to see how the memory works in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the Agentic Loop. So the Agentic Loop is basically how the agent is handling your requests. So first, for example, you send a question, you give it a task to do, you say fix the bug in the test.js file. So first, the agent is going to take your question and is going to think about it. And then the decision phase. So it's going to decide what tools it's going to use, what things it needs to fetch from the tools that it has access to. So it's going to go execute these tools, and then it's going to save any findings or learnings in memory. And then it's going to repeat this loop until there is a satisfactory answer or the task is completed. And then it gives you back the answer. And that's basically the fundamental agentic loop. In reality, it's actually more complicated than that. This is a simplified overview of how any agentic loop actually works. And Clowdbot is no exception to that. Okay, so now let's take a look at the memory. So first thing is that it has the access to the agent instructions. So agents.md saves the operating instructions that you can also change. So this is the main instructions or the core set of instructions and rules that the agent is gonna follow. Then the soul.md file. So this is the personality and behavior that you're gonna define. Then the tools, all the available tools in the list, about more than 50 integrations like Gmail, Calendar, Telegram, WhatsApp, Slack. Then the user.md, which is the user preferences, what the user prefers. And this is gonna be also updated over time. So it's like dynamically gets updated, which is the interesting thing about this. Then we have the memory files, conversations that are happening, and what are the learnings this agent is collecting over time. Also the skills directory, which enables the agent to access specific skills, which are just files of instructions about specific tasks that needs to be performed. For example, if you find yourself that you're repeating one task, you can package it in a skill. Then the agent is gonna progressively navigate the folders and files of that skill as needed, and it's gonna use it to perform the task that you give it. And all of that is saved in a Git repository, because a Git repository is a traceable, portable place that can keep all these files organized. Okay, now let's go to the proactivity, which is, I think, the main differentiator besides the accessibility. So it's extremely accessible to you. It has all the integrations that you want. At the same time, it's proactive. So it implements proactivity. So how traditional agents work in a reactive manner. So you send a message, for example, to ChatGPT. It's going to respond to you, and then it's going to wait for your next message, standing by all the time for your question, and then it answers you, and then it goes idle. However, Cloudbot implemented proactivity. So there are two modes of proactivity. There is the cron jobs. So you can actually schedule some jobs in the background. So you can, for example, tell it to set a reminder in 20 minutes or in interval. For example, you can check something every 4 hours. Also some recurring job to set a reminder or something daily in a specific time. So this is the first part of it, which is the cron job. But I think the more interesting one is the heartbeat. If the heartbeat is enabled, if you enable the heartbeat, then every 30 minutes, for example, you can configure it to a different number, but every 30 minutes, let's say, it's going to read the heartbeat.md file, and then it's going to check if there's anything to do. So for example, if there are any tasks that are hanging, or for example, if you have an important meeting that is coming up, it's going to be saved in the heartbeat file, and then it's going to remind you about it. For example, if there's some task that needs to be done, it's going to do the task and then give you the response, or it's going to skip and say that there is nothing to do in the heartbeat. So this is actually very useful, because the agent is not just sitting there and waiting for you, but every 30 minutes it's going to remind you if actually there's something important to be done, and you can actually configure that. And this is very useful. Cloudbot has a system level access to your machine, so you should never run it on your local machine, because it has access to files and it can run dangerous commands. Most importantly, it's prone to prompt injection. Prompt injection is when the system receives some input and this input doesn't come from you. For example, if you connect it to WhatsApp, any WhatsApp message that the agent receives is gonna be an input for the LLM. People are gonna take advantage of that, and they're gonna try to prompt the LLM to give them some access to something on the attacker's behalf, not on your behalf. Configuration complexity, so it's easy to install. Because it's easy to install, a lot of people are going to install it, and when they install it, they either not gonna be aware of the consequences when you install it on your laptop. For example, you're gonna give it access to your system, and it's gonna do something harmful or unintended. You might be exposed to attacks and risks, especially that this assistant is meant to be a personal assistant. So most probably the popular use cases for this are going to be with messaging apps like Telegram and WhatsApp. And just imagine how insecure that might get, and people might actually get access to others' conversations and messages, and that's actually very risky. That's why the creator of Cloudbot said it's still in development and it's very new. It's not advisable for non-technical people to install it. And now also the cost and production maturity. So this actually can be very expensive, especially when you use Cloud Opus 4.5. It's the most expensive cloud model. So it can burn a lot of tokens. And I've seen people, for example, here, they're reporting that the tokens got burned by dragging a huge context forward. So the LLM was trying to preserve a huge chunks of the context throughout the conversations and throughout all the tasks that it's doing without needing all this context. So it's basically ballooning the token usage, and therefore it could be very expensive. And also, if you set up the heartbeat every 30 minutes, the LLM is gonna go perform some tasks, so it's running all the time, even if you're not talking to it. All these limitations actually lead us to be cautious before using it and to actually know if the use case actually is worth it. And this also brings us back to this. These people are gonna promote using Clowdbot without necessarily imposing the risks associated with it. Nobody actually cares about your personal security because they're gonna tell you it's not our business that you are using this technology or any other technology the way you are using it. They are in some sense right, but it's your responsibility to also take a look at the pros and cons of every technology. But as I told you, in the next video, I'm going to be actually using it. I'm gonna be creating or building a content scheduling system using Clowdbot, because it can have access to the platforms that I want to post content on, and it also is going to have access to my previous posts. And at the same time, I want to use an open source LLM. I want to see how it performs, and I want to put it in a secure sandbox so it doesn't have access to any external messaging apps rather than the specific input that I give it access to. So I want to see if I can actually provide value with this scheduling system and whether it can keep me actually disciplined on the posting times. So this is very interesting use case in my opinion, so stay tuned for it. And yeah, that was all. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.